I'm Dr. Arsha Subbi, Assistant Professor, Kristu Jayanti College. Welcome to a session on translation and dubbing. So today's topic is on dubbing, which is particularly focusing within the context of translation. So dubbing is basically, what we know about dubbing is it adds soundtrack to a video content, and that is what dubbing usually is. But within the context of translation, dubbing is actually when you replace an original soundtrack with a target language soundtrack. So there is the aspect of translation there in the process of dubbing itself. So you change soundtrack of a particular video content. It could be a TV show, it could be a film, it could be advertisement, it could be a video game as well. So the concept of dubbing itself, it came into being with the talking movies in the late 1920s, and dubbing as a process within translation, that is creating movies in different languages or video content in different languages. It started off initiated by large countries with high production cost and authoritarian regimes. So usually there was a political agenda behind these initiatives where people wanted their political ideologies to be spread to different countries using the language and the process of dubbing in that process. So what is the purpose and impact of dubbing? So mostly dubbing is something where the media, be it a movie, be it an advertisement, or be it any video content, it becomes accessible to illiterate audience. Now, for example, if we have an English movie or an English content being shown, or it has to be shared to an audience who's illiterate when it comes to the language English, dubbing is a process that would help them understand. So something that comes in their regional language, they would understand what the concept is through the regional language used in the process of dubbing. And dubbing remains widely used despite the new audio-visual translation method. So we have many different OTT platforms and different platforms where movies from different parts of the world are getting popular. So the modern trends, when you look at the modern trends in dubbing with globalization, digital technologies, and increased media consumption, dubbing as a process itself is changing. So one particular movie or a video content, it gets dubbed into many different languages given the situation that we have with the OTT platforms and other platforms. Now, starting with the first important topic when it comes to dubbing is the multimodality. So what is multimodality? Multimodality is something where content, be it a video content or anything, it is characterized by several different modes of activity or occurrence. That is, there would be several different aspects within. So multimodality, we would have the sound, we would have the video, we would have many different aspects in that one single content. So dubbing becomes important, and the major activity that happens in dubbing when you consider the multimodality aspect is synchronizing. So you need to synchronize the image and sound in dubbing. So synchronization, it should also apply to the lip movements, the gestures, the facial expression, and the body language. So dubbing is considered constrained translation due to multiple restrictions. As it is multimodal in nature, it gets very complicated when a small content gets dubbed into another language. There are different aspects that we have to keep in mind when dubbing as a process happens. So dubbing, is also important when we consider the different semiotic codes. Semiotic codes are simply system of signs and symbols that convey a meaning. So within a video content, take the example of a movie. You would have linguistic, codes, that is the language itself. You would have kinetic codes, which is action basically. And then you would have iconographic, that is again the symbols and other things involved in the content. Acoustic is the sound, musical is the music, photographic and cinematic codes. So one single video content, it would contain these many signs and symbols. So it becomes quite a complicated process when we have to dub it into another language. So what are the two ways in which we can actually facilitate dubbing into another language? The first one is visual verbal compensation, and the other one is intersemiotic adaptation. Now what is visual verbal compensation? It is simply converting the meaning moving from verbal language to visual or non-verbal cues. And this particularly applies to cultural references, jokes, or word plays, which does not translate well. So the meaning is adjusted through visuals or added dialogue. Here you can use the example of the movie Ratatouille, the animated movie Ratatouille. So there in the movie we have many French cuisines, and which basically comes from the French culture. But it is said that when this particular movie was dubbed into Arabic, there were a few words or food items which was difficult to be dubbed. So instead of the French cuisines, there they used cuisines which were quite which the Arabic audience would understand. So there they only changed the audio there, or the references there, but the video remained the same. So that is visual verbal compensation. Coming to intersemiotic adaptation, this is another methodology that you can use when it comes to dubbing to facilitate proper dubbing. Here we add visuals to compensate for meaning that may be lost in the process of translation. So here you can take the example of the movie Zootopia, where there is in different countries when Zootopia was released, there was a difference in a particular scene, that is a news anchor reading a particular news. So in Australia, there was a koala bear who read the news, and in different places, according to the different places, they had selected different animals, which is the animated movie. So it had different animals presenting the news. So that applies according to the culture or the place in which it is presented. So that is intersemiotic adaptation. Coming to the other aspects in dubbing, another very difficult aspect when it comes to dubbing is the humor, because mostly we would have cultural references and puns included, which is quite a difficult process to be translated. Few other aspects to keep in mind in the process of dubbing in translation is the deixis. So deixis is basically, it links the spoken discourse to the visual elements affecting narrative and audience perception. So that there are different types of deixis. The first is personal deixis. Now whenever there is I, you, he, she, they, whenever these words are being translated to another language and then used in dubbing, it gets a little complicated sometimes. Because for example, you in Hindi, it has got aap or tum. It has two variations. So what to use? Those confusions. And then you have spatial deixis, which talks about where it is happening, the space in which it is happening, here, there, this, that, etc., near, far, etc. And then we have temporal deixis, which talks about the timeline in which certain things happen, that is now, then, soon, later, etc. And social deixis, which basically includes titles, honorifics, formality levels, etc. So these are the different deixis that might get complicated in the process of dubbing. Then you also, we need to keep in mind the concept of voice quality and characterization in the process of dubbing. So any change in the voice modulation or the voice or, other aspects of voice itself, that could change the entirety of the dubbing or the story concept itself. Now, moving on to the next topic, that is the verbal code in dubbing. So just a few concepts to keep in mind. The first is dubbies. Dubbies is actually a very stiff and formal way of saying or formal way of dubbing when it comes to the process of dubbing. For example, the particular sentence here, hey, what's up? Long time no see. I missed you, man. Now, this is a very casual conversation that you would have with someone. But when it gets dubbed and translated into Hindi, it might go something like this. Namaste. Aap kaise hai? Hame mile bahut samay ho gaya hai. Maine aapko bahut yaad kiya. So this gets very formal and it gets very stiff in nature. So that is what dubbies is. Whenever in the process of translation, if something gets changed in this way, that is called as dubbies. So it's not very prevalent nowadays, because now it's much more, a very professional way of dubbing is adopted. So it's not very much, in practice. And Coming to the other challenges in translation, oftentimes what happens, there is dubbed speech often lacks the spontaneity of real conversation, and it might, it gets compensated with the idiomatic expressions, the style inconsistencies, and English calques, that is the direct translations. These could affect the fluency. Also, another challenge that often people face in the process of dubbing is humor, wordplay, and intertextual references, which gets quite difficult to be translated. Now, coming to the last topic of discussion, which is the ideological dimension in dubbing. Now, we should understand that dubbing is a process which also has a function, that is the gatekeeping function. So dubbing, it influences cultural representations and often altering content to align with the socio-cultural norms. So in the process of dubbing, it is also important to consider the culture in which the target language culture. So there again, there are certain other things to be followed, and also political and ideological censorship is common, simplifying narratives and toning down sensitive references. So it is said that when the movie Captain America was released in China, there were a few places where the ardent love for America was toned down a little bit. So there are such changes made in the process of dubbing and translation. So that is the ideological dimension. Now, there are two types of manipulation that happens in dubbing. The first one is technical manipulation, and the other one is ideological manipulation. Manipulation is simply the change that happens in the process of dubbing. The first one, technical manipulation, are the changes made due to the technical constraints of dubbing. This could include the lip syncing, the timing, and the audiovisual coherence. So basically, due to the technical, manipulation, that is when it is converted to another language, when we dub it into another language, there would be lip syncing issues that happen. So for such things, we term it as technical manipulation. This is an example that you can have when one dialogue from the movie Pirates of Caribbean, it was in English and Spanish. There was a lot of difference in the way it was represented. So this is due to the technical issues. So then there is a technical manipulation that is needed. Now, the last one is the ideological manipulation. So ideological manipulation is basically the changes made due to censorship, cultural norms, political influence, or ideological perspectives. So this could be, a cultural adaptation to avoid offending audience. It could be moral adjustments made in the dialogue for specific age groups. It could be a reinterpretation of political messages in authoritarian regimes. It could be anything. So there is a self-censorship, or it could be due to other external pressures, which often lead to omission or modification of politically, religiously, or socially sensitive content. Okay, so this is the second type of manipulation that you have, the technical and ideological manipulation. That's all with the topic. Thank you.